What if when you acquire a business, you forget to actually take advantage of one thing that you're purchasing that's intangible, that nobody realizes how valuable it actually is? Hi, I'm Jared Krause. I'm the host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Ross Gerson, who is the founder of dealslide.com. Now, Ross was a former broker at Empire Flippers for 2.5 years. We also talk about how I almost became a broker at Empire Flippers and how Ross actually called me to see if I wanted to become a broker at Empire Flippers. What ended up happening there, interesting story in how we bumped heads there. And then also how and why he transitioned to being an acquisition advisor, and he's been a bit of a consultant, worked for WebStreet for roughly 3 years and still does some consultancy. His portfolio, he's bought more than 15 to 20 content sites. He has one that he's mentions in the pod that they're also looking for an operator. And in this podcast episode, it's such a refreshing conversation around what Ross learnt from buyers working as a broker from Empire Flippers. We talk about not getting on the phone. We talk about acquisition criteria and how tough it has been for people that are first buying to try and work out what the acquisition criteria is. I share some things on how you can nail down your acquisition criteria and learn more about yourself to be able to do so. We also talk about speaking to sellers and how valuable and important that is, not just before you acquire the business, but through the training period, which I alluded to at the start of this podcast episode. We also talk about what he learned from sellers working as a consultant for WebStreet and what sort of deals he helped for and acquire actually for WebStreet once they've done funding, and what sort of business models as well. He's learned so much from the sell side and so much from the buy side. It's a great conversation because we sort of run parallel to one another and have done a little bit of different things in our career, but we've helped so many people acquire and sell businesses, and it's such a refreshing conversation. We also talk about DealSlide. It's a marketplace where he just scrapes a bunch of deals from 20 plus brokers and how it saves time in the search phase for looking for businesses. Now, there's so much value in this podcast, about what buyers get wrong, what buyers do right, what sellers get wrong, what sellers do right, and how you can become a better acquirer for your online business, and also how you can set yourself up for a good exit as well. Enjoy the pod. Hey, Ross. Welcome to the pod, and thanks for your time.
Hey, Jared. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you. And yourself?
Doing well, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to really dig into your journey around what did you do before online businesses and Empire Flippers? So for everybody listening, you've worked at Empire Flippers, and we want to there's a cool little story that we're going to share soon around that, myself and Empire Flippers and yourself and Empire Flippers. But where were you at? Why did you decide to move to the online space and get involved with Empire Flippers?
Yeah, so I was actually always a fan of Empire Flippers, and I listened to their podcast, read their blog, and was interested in acquiring a small online business kind of way back in the day, 2015, 2016, 2017, when they were selling much smaller websites on Empire Flippers and online businesses. And that's how I came across Empire Flippers. I actually applied to work for them the first time that they were hiring salespeople for their team, essentially brokers, to join. And I didn't get the role. And then I met Joe and Justin in person at a conference in Bangkok. I was trying to kind of do my own online business. I was doing some digital marketing, trying to figure out the nomad lifestyle, and met Joe and Justin at the right time and started to work for them January of 2018, and did that for about 2.5 years. And it was a really great experience. So really did it because I was a fan of Empire Flippers, really curious about the space, and thought it would be super interesting to learn about which businesses are making money and meet really interesting buyers and sellers and learn by working for Empire Flippers.
Yeah, that's cool. So what were you doing prior to you starting your own online thing? Did you have a job, or were you out of college? Where were you at, and why did you?
Out of college, After college, I actually followed a more traditional path, and I was working within real estate and living in Chicago. And then, was listening to Empire Flippers and other podcasts and kind of trying to learn about online business, and was also really interested in traveling. So I was learning online business and was doing Facebook marketing at the time. So I actually left my job out in Chicago. I was doing some recruiting as well, kind of helping out with some friends' businesses at the time, and was really trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life. The Facebook marketing and digital marketing business that I was starting was kind of more of a freelance thing, and I knew it wasn't really the right fit. So when I met Joe and Justin again, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to kind of really dig in and learn about online business. So yeah, it was definitely a transition going to the online business world.
Yeah, so cool. Congrats. And before we hit record buttons, you were mentioning that you cold called me. Was that correct? Do you remember when that was? Like what's, because I think it was in 2015 or 2016, I applied to work as a broker with Empire Flip as well. And I got denied. And I've spoken to Justin and Joe multiple times now since this, and they've been on the pod, and I've been on the Empire Flippers pod multiple times. And there's a bit of a running joke around what would have been different in Empire Flippers if they had have like not said no. But yeah, what was it? How did you come across me? Like, I'm curious. Was it the podcast first, or was it, how did that look with Empire Flippers?
Yeah, well, I actually, the same role that you applied for, I think you mentioned around 2016, 2017 was the first job I applied for at Empire Flippers. And that's what I ended up doing the second time around. And yeah, I actually remember exactly where I was when I called you. It was right around Easter, and it was Philippines. We just wrapped up 2-ish months of training with Empire Flippers. And then we flew out to the Philippines for a company retreat. We were actually with the CEO, Joe, at the time, and he wanted us to, it was the first time we were meeting him. He wasn't with us at the training, and he wanted to hear us on the phones. And it was actually a Monday in the Philippines, but Sunday night in the USA. And normally we're calling people in the States. At the time, part of the reason that Empire Flippers brought on myself and other people was to go through their list of people and start to outreach, because it was more just reacting to people that would raise their hand that they wanted help or wanted to talk to someone about buying and selling an online business. And Empire Flippers had this massive database, and they wanted people to go out and call people that were active on the marketplace and looking at deals, but not talking to anyone. So we were literally just going through HubSpot, seeing people that were active or hitting certain benchmarks or metrics and calling them, or telling us their criteria, going through different filters and calling them. And it was Monday. It's like I said, in the Philippines, and Easter Sunday in the USA. So I was looking for people that I didn't want to bother on Easter on a Sunday. So I remember the list was small for Australia, and I saw your name and I called you. So at the time, I don't think I knew that, or maybe you were just starting this, and I'm not sure where you were at the time with this channel.
Yeah, I don't know what year was this. 2017.
This was Q1 2018 when I would have called you.
Okay.
Or start of Q2, so Easter 2018.
Yeah. I had started buying online businesses. I got the domain in 2016, and I launched the business in mid 2017 or the start of 2017. So I was definitely already coaching, and I would have had probably full books of coaching clients through Bob. Yeah. So what did I say? Do you remember? Do you remember the conversation at all?
You were just telling me that you were active and working with people, and that you shared the story that you applied to work for Empire Flippers previously. And I think you had a lot of ideas at the time, and you already wanted to start the business that you started. And maybe you mentioned that to the Empire Flippers at the time. And I think you mentioned something along those lines of that's why it didn't end up working out. But they definitely missed an opportunity with you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Justin and Joe, I've talked about that, like I said, multiple times since. But I think the biggest reason that I wasn't able to work with them is because they had a policy that if you are a broker, you're not able to acquire businesses, online businesses, even if it's outside of their marketplace. And I was like, well, I can't not, like, I'm in this phase where I'm just acquiring, and I can't guarantee that I'm not going to do that. So it was a mutual thing between us both, really. Like it was their policy, but I was just being honest. I was like, look, I want to build my portfolio. Like it's a thing I want to do. So you were with Empire Flippers for nearly 3 years. What did you, and you were a broker, so you moved into being a broker, right? What did that look like? Like, what were some of the things that you learned through that period as a broker?
I would definitely say it was priceless in terms of the education. You're constantly talking to buyers of all sizes. that are interested in acquiring online businesses and learning about the process and talking to sellers of all different types of businesses. I would say the most interesting part for me are where the buyer seller conference calls, where you can kind of be a fly on the wall and listen to buyers interview sellers and hear them get to know each other. And then also have those conversations with the buyers and sellers separately before and after the call. So I feel like that was really where I learned the most on those calls with buyers and sellers. And I will say, so something you mentioned just before previously, is that actually Empire Flippers did not have that no side gig policy, is what they called it at the time, where when I started, so back, I think until 2019, we were able to buy online businesses. It just wasn't on Empire Flippers. So we could buy elsewhere. Right. And they changed it. But now I believe that they can. I'm not 100% sure of the policies, but when I was there from, I would say, late 2018 to whenever they made the policy, I was actually buying small websites myself on Flippa and really wherever I could that worked with what I was, my criteria. Flippa seems to have really the most sites in the kind of smaller content site range. Yeah, so that was part of why I ended up leaving Empire Flippers, is because they made that policy where we actually couldn't buy or do any sort of online business as we were a broker. So I decided to continue at Empire Flippers for a bit and just focus on the few of the sites that I already acquired. But eventually I ended up leaving because I wanted to keep buying businesses similar to yourself.
It's very interesting that at the start, they had that policy, they opened it up and then shut it back down again. I would say I don't know. What do you think? Do you think you being able to buy your own businesses on the side, taking that education that you learnt from Empire Flippers, acquire your own businesses through Flipper and maybe offline, do you feel like you would have learnt through your own acquisitions, like being able to become a better broker as well for Empire Flippers? Like, I feel like that would have been a pretty amazing education that you got that Empire Flippers didn't need to pay for, because you're doing on your own time.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think buyers, and sellers want to work with people that they know have acquired and have skin in the game and are online business operators and owners as well. So I think, it goes a long way. I could see from their side of it, wanting to make sure that, everything's kosher, and we are, an Empire Flipper broker obviously has a lot of access to information, and they want to make sure everything is good there and you're focused on the role. But I understand kind of what you're saying as well. I think that there's a lot that you can learn from acquiring on your own, and it makes you a better broker as well.
For sure. From being a broker, what would you say have the top two things that either surprised you about buyers, or top two things that you learned from buyers that you've gone away and used yourself as an acquirer, or top two things that you sort of surprised you about buyers? I'd like to, and then we'll go and talk about the flip side of sellers too. But let's stick with buyers for now. What did you learn from them as you were advising and brokering?
Yeah. The first things that I thought of actually weren't things that I learned from buyers, although there's tons of things that I learned. I feel like that's a really, really large list. But the first thing that came to my mind was more things I was surprised about, in terms of a lot of buyers, they're really hesitant to talk to sellers on a call. They think that they can do a lot of their due diligence just over email, back and forth, or whatever the broker provides. And I think it's really invaluable to get on a call and meet the person that you're buying it from, even if you're buying a $5,000, $10,000 website. I know people may disagree with me, but I was always surprised to see sometimes people buying a $100,000 plus website or online business and not having a conversation like this with the seller.
Crazy.
And that kind of shocked me. It is crazy. I've actually sold businesses before where that happened, where I listed a business after I left Empire Flippers on Empire Flippers, and right in that kind of range, and no conversation with the buyer other than email back and forth. And then they learn something in migration where they ask a question, and I'm like, listen, maybe you should have asked that before we did the deal.
Yeah. I just think
so that's one thing.
Yeah, before we move on to the next one, because I know you got so much to share, and thanks, Ross. The reason being for that, and I noticed this, is because most people, when they first start out, they may feel a little bit intimidated and don't want to feel like they're they're underneath somebody, because they're just starting out and they're like, I want to buy a business. I know nothing about online businesses, but I want to buy it, and I don't want the seller to think I'm stupid. So that intimidation of not getting on the call, which is basically ego really stuffing us up, right? Really getting in our way and like allowing us to be far more open to risks versus just like put that aside, understand that you're learning and you're wanting to, like, I try and tell people to get on the phone as much as possible. Even $5,000-$10,000 is like, for somebody to save $5,000-$10,000, who knows? It might have taken them a couple of years to get to that point. So what's one phone call and putting your ego aside, checking that at the door? And I think I'm glad that you brought that up because it's just silly. It's silly not to speak to a seller. Like the most valuable part of the transaction is typically the relationship. So thanks for bringing that up, Ross. What was the other thing that you were going to spit out before I cut you off there?
Yeah, it's funny. What you said made me think of more things even as well.
Yeah,
even like on the small end, I would say even large buyers that I've worked with, there's a lot of times where it's like we'll be debating something and having a conversation, and we could just figure this out with a quick conversation with the seller. So it could even be a $500,000, $1 million plus deal. And I get it. No one wants to waste someone else's time, but there's so much you could learn and discover and figure out if it's a good fit or not by just getting on a call and hearing it directly from the horse's mouth. And who knows what you're going to learn to apply then for your business or another business that you end up acquiring. And then another thing I thought of when you brought that up is the fact that people are nervous to talk to sellers. And there's that whole kind of ego thing you mentioned and, the fear of looking like they're a newbie. That actually makes it almost impossible for them to end up pulling the trigger and buying a business, or it's going to delay it by a ton of time or make it more risky, because the best way to learn is through those calls directly with the seller, where you can ask questions and look at the profit and loss statement and then learn what you like and what you don't like. So then you can take that and tailor your criteria for the next calls. So when I would talk to people, especially that are new, I would always encourage them to get on calls and look at as many deals as possible, because I know that would help them figure out what they like and learn things. And there's always going to be things that pop up. And the people that don't get on calls, they either fade out over time or it just takes them a super long time to buy a business if they ever do.
I love that. I love that you said that. Yeah, it's really the biggest gatekeeper is not building relationships with people in the space. And also, like, once you buy the business, you've got to build a relationship with them anyway. Well, you should, because then you're really robbing yourself of part of the business. And the part of the business isn't like that you're buying isn't just the accounts, right? Like the sales distribution channel, the Amazon account, the website, the main hosting, if you're getting hosting coming along with it, like that's a portion of the assets that you get. And this is just coming up to me now, is like one portion of the asset that is intangible that you are actually acquiring is the knowledge and the access to the seller and their knowledge through the training. And that's not something that's written down in a APA or a contract of sale. Is like you're actually buying that. And if you don't acquire it because of your ego, like you're missing out on so much value, right? You're missing out on a big portion of like how you could de-risk or grow the business.
100% agree. I love that. Yeah, there's so much value to get on the call, whether it's, building rapport to win the deal, or then, the seller knows you and it's a different level of the relationship when it comes time to help you, or ironing out what the appropriate support and training is going to be. But I 100% agree. Personally, in deals that I've done, I become friends with the seller. I iron out very specific training and support, because a lot of times they know something that like they might not value as much as I do, like keyword research or some SEO stuff. And I'm like, hey, why don't we do a few calls to talk about this, or you could help me hire someone or teach my VA how to do this, etc. And to them, it's no big deal. They're like, oh yeah, I look at Ahrefs and do this kind of stuff all day. It's no big deal to hop on 2 calls with you. It's super easy. Where for you, it feels like a big ask, but you're never going to get that without the relationship and the call there. So yeah, I 100% agree with you there.
That's a great perspective and a great example, Ross. Like, it's nothing to them, and it might be playing it up in your head like it's a big deal, but it's just like, yeah, just do this. It's fine. Happy to share it. Like that's the two perspectives.
I always advise buyers to, like, as a sweetener on the deal, like any support and training, like I'll have a conversation with them. Like, what would be super helpful for you? What did you like about the seller? Maybe that he does that he could help you with. And yeah, it's normally not a big ask. And in my opinion, goes a long way. There's a lot of buyers, I think, that don't care too much about that kind of stuff. And maybe I overthink it, but to me, it seems like low risk, high reward to try to soak up as much as you can, like you said, like the DNA from the seller, and try to learn something and get something extra in the deal that is perceived as a low give for the seller.
Yeah, so much value in there. What else have you learned from buyers or even sellers now, like that's either surprised you or was something that's helped you significantly in your acquisitions?
Yeah. I mean, the more calls you do, the better. I'd say like my advantage when I was doing my own deals and when I help buyers and get on calls is like I've been on so many of the buyer seller conference calls that I think I'm good at developing rapport and learning things about the business to help assess it being a good deal or not. But the first thing when you mentioned this, actually, that I thought about is that surprisingly, most buyers don't really know what a good fit is for them. They have an idea, but they come in thinking like, oh, it could be a SaaS business, it could be an e-com business, but they're really like not zoned in on what's going to be their unfair advantage and be the best fit, and they need some help, and it's a process, as we were kind of talking about. That's something that surprised me. And then a lot of people think that like there's this magic private deal flow out there and like nothing on the brokers is good. And that's something that always frustrates me and surprises me. Like I get it. Yes, that's a great way to get deals and have, deals that aren't out there, but there's a lot of, that's something that constantly comes up, that buyers are always looking for off-market deal flow. And a lot of them are like just overlooking broker deals because they think there must be something wrong with it because it's on a marketplace, which I think is wrong.
I totally agree. I totally agree with both of those things. In terms of like the private off-market deals, sub 500K, like I was going to build out a private deal flow marketplace, a membership actually, and anybody's open to doing that. Throw it out there as a business idea for people. We looked at doing it, and I do give some private deals to my members in the Buying Online Business community. It's not a whole lot. I was going to charge for it. We just do it for free now. It's just a bit of an added bonus. But to find those deals at that price range under the $500,000 range is like most of the deals that you're getting are not great deals. And they're not, just because they're off market doesn't mean they're good, and people are likely not going to want to buy them. And there's a reason. The way I look at Empire Flippers and other brokerage sites is like they are the deal flow. Like you guys, that's what a brokerage business is. It is basically just at high level, it's just deal flow and then bringing businesses to the market. How is somebody with less resources than you guys going to be able to do it better? Like you might be able to do it a fraction of it, but it's tricky. And I've looked into it and we've tried to do it really well, but it's just a tricky one to do. So spot on. What was the other one that you were mentioning around? Yeah.
I was mentioning buyers not really knowing exactly what they want when they get started. They're kind of broad on their criteria without really zoning in on what's going to be the unfair advantage for them.
This is why I have a job. This is why the community exists, is because it helps people to sort of work out where they're at, what skills they do or don't have, and what sort of workload they want to take on or not take on to nail down an acquisition criteria. And even then, what happens when they listen to multiple people instead of listening to themselves or tuning into themselves is we come up with things that aren't specifically right for us. And that's what I like to teach people. Learn to listen to yourself, build your own values, because when you study yourself more than studying everybody else, you're going to be able to get better results for yourself versus like trying to do what other people have done. Because then it's just confusing. You go to the marketplace like, oh, what about this? What about that? But like, if you know yourself, then you can't go wrong.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think it's really helpful for buyers to sit down and write down really their experience and try to really map out what the perfect fit is going to be for them based on lots of things, their resources and, like you were mentioning, time they want to spend and experience and all those things. So another thing I was thinking about as well, you mentioned before, I think kind of crafting, obviously knowing where all the deals are on market, but also thinking about finding off market deals like you were mentioning, like you're just getting deals sent to you because people know you're in the space. So I think it makes sense to kind of be out there and try to attract deal flow that might be private, but at the same time, keep your eye on all the marketplaces to maximize deal flow. I mean, if you have the resources, build out some sort of way to go out and be strategic to get in front of off-market deals.
Yeah, like it's just building your brand in the space. And I can see why a lot of people don't do it because they might do 2 acquisitions, but to build out deal flow to get 2 acquisitions in the space of 5 to 10 years, it's a lot of work to do that, which is, and on the lower end, maybe they're buying like a lot more, but yeah, you really got to put your neck out there to do so. In terms of like on the opposite side, the outside buyers, what about sellers? What are some of the things that you like surprised you about some of the sellers? It could be anything like accepting more like less money for a deal, but for better terms, or a better buyer, how they operate, why they want to sell. Like, what are some of the things that have just surprised you about sellers in general?
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast about this one, I think. Yeah, this was probably, it's really the Wild West, you know?
Maybe. Sorry?
Yeah, it's just really a lot of, it's a newer market. Buying businesses has been around for a long time. Buying online businesses, obviously a lot more recent. And a lot of times these monetizations are 10, 20-ish years old, and they're in the early years of being tradable assets. So the rules are kind of like being written as we speak for a lot of these monetizations. And I feel like there's a lot of debate over the best practices sometimes, and people taking things from traditional M&A and assuming that's how it works for small online businesses. And then there's people that have no idea as well. So that's something that kind of shocked me, is a lot of people that come into it and they go to sell their business and like, they don't even know they can sell it. They don't know what it's worth. They don't think anyone's going to come in and make an offer that's not all cash. It's like crazy varying opinions, and it's a very international market as well. And I think especially the seller market is more international, I'd say, than the buyer market. It seems like there's buyers from all over, of course, but I would say predominantly they're based in the USA, whereas sellers, it's a lot of times, someone in Bali that likes to surf, that has an e-commerce business or a website business or a SaaS business, and they go to an Empire Flippers or Acquire or Flippa or Quietly. I'm not saying that's the typical seller persona, but I was surprised how international it was and how varying the understanding of how it works, where someone could come in. It really would almost very much depend on the savviness of the seller to know how hard the deal was going to be. And it also surprised me how much goes into it, where you're like the seller's friend, their broker, their therapist. And it's a very, obviously emotional process for sellers to go through. If you're selling a $20,000 business, $100,000, $1 million business, obviously it's all relative. Shouldn't be surprising in hindsight, but those are some of the things that I would say really surprised me when I first started at Empire Flippers working with sellers.
I've had that conversation. Actually, somebody asked me just yesterday, I'm going to acquire a significant size business for them as a couple. And the partner asked me, like, if you can make such good money through buying online businesses, and the ROIs are so good, why do not more people do it? And the answer really is, it's a same thing as sellers not knowing how much, or knowing that they can sell their business, or how much they can get for their business and what that looks like, and whether they can get all cash or it's going to be finance or whatnot, is because people just don't know. Like you said, it's very green space. Like acquiring assets and acquiring businesses have been around for a long time. Thousands of years, hundreds of years, right? And the internet's been around for what, like 30-ish years or so. It's green. And then for that, in those 30 years, everybody's only talked about starting businesses. Like if you want to make money online, which is a lot of people's goal, because their real goal is actually, like, can I help you, like, is to get lifestyle, more time, more freedom, so the vehicle is online income. And most people, what do you hear? Well, like, if you want to make an online income, what do people say? It's like, you just start your own online business. But that's not, like, nobody knows you can buy it. Like, hardly outside of our sphere, like our world, like most people don't even know you can buy business, let alone sell a business. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because like people come to me and it's like, oh, what should I do with my business? I'm like, you can grow it, you can sell it. It's like, oh, sell it. Like, how much is it going to be worth? Well, like, depends on the business model, but like, it's pretty surprising when somebody's like, oh, the business is say making 100K a year. Well, you could sell that thing for anywhere from 200 to 300K on average. They're like, whoa, like, what would that do for my life? Have you seen how life-changing exits have been for a lot of sellers? And like, tell us some of those stories.
Yeah. I was reminded immediately when you just told your quick kind of story that I met a woman that had an FBA business in the UK, and she sold it for 400 something K kind of during the whole FBA aggregator boom of things. But when
Yeah.
I talked to her, she's like, oh, I didn't know anyone would buy a business my size. I was like, wow, it just crazy. And it sold, I think, for full list price in like a week or two because it was just craziness at that time.
Yeah.
But that was a
Aggregate.
funny one.
Aggregate. Yeah, it's crazy. And she probably got a really
Yeah.
good
Where
multiple.
she literally, yeah, yeah. She like thought it was too, I think like I helped her a little bit with negotiating it because I wasn't a broker at the time. I was an advisor.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think I got put in touch with her through a mutual friend. And yeah, I think she listed for just under 40x in the monthly profit. I don't remember a lot of the details, but I remember like she thought it was like, oh, I think it's too high. I'm like, I think we're good. And it sold right away. Yeah.
That's great. Congrats to her. Yeah. So you've bought a bunch of businesses as well. You started out buying small content sites. What does your portfolio look like now? Like what sort of like business models have you got in there? And are you still bullish on content sites? Where are you at? Like sort of like give us a bit of a recap on your acquisition journey and then where your portfolio is at now.
Yeah. So I bought a handful of sites 2019-ish before Empire Flippers reinstated or started the rule rather where we weren't able to buy online businesses. And I took a break for a little bit and then I started again summer of 2020 when I left Empire Flippers. I purchased roughly 15 or so content websites. It's all content. I've never done anything outside of a content site and predominantly display advertising. I've done a few affiliate and some of the sites are mixed with affiliate display advertising, but it's mostly display ads. And for some reason, that's just what I was most drawn to and most interested in and where I'm kind of curious and enjoy looking through P&Ls and looking at Ahrefs and thinking about ways I can grow the site. I don't know why. For some reason, it's fun to me. Whereas the other ones are interesting, but I don't think about them in the same way. I like SaaS, obviously, but e-commerce and physical products has never appealed to me like content and the more digital side of things. So yeah, mostly display advertising. I sold most of those sites. I still own a few of them. I have one that's way larger than most. It's in the music space. So it's like music charts and facts and things like that. And it's almost like a compilation of Billboard top 40 charts, the top 40 songs each week from 1955 to present day, and ranks for all sorts of keywords in that category. And I bought that in 2020. I am a minority owner now, and I've brought on two partners, and we're actually trying to hire someone to help us operate it full time. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story without me rambling too much. But when I first discovered the deal, I could have bought it for just a few grand, ended up paying way more for it about a year later, but it's worth a lot more than I paid for it. But yeah, it was kind of a wild journey with that one.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, that's cool. So you got 3 partners and looking for an operator. That's cool. Anybody that could be an operator of a content site, reach out to Ross. I'm sure you'll get some hits.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe list some like qualifications they need to have.
Yeah. We actually, I think, have a job posting up right now. So we're looking for basically an SEO to run the site and manage it, but we want to de-risk and obviously build a real brand and do email. And we've, knock on wood, done well through Google updates, but things are changing so quickly. And, I'm sure you've seen lots of unfortunate things with Google updates and, people that have those sites. I've seen it and I've had sites that have gotten hit. So yeah, kind of need to do that immediately. So the ideal person would be someone with a strong SEO background, but ideally has the experience and know-how to try to build a real brand and build an email list and do some other things outside of Google organic.
Yeah. Got ya. Cool. And so you were an acquisition advisor for WebStreet. How was that different? How was that role different to Empire Flippers? Or was it not really?
Yes. No, it was similar, but very different. Same, but different, as they say in Thailand, right? At WebStreet, I've been doing that for about 3 years, and I focus on just helping them acquire. So it's more buy-side focused, whereas Empire Flippers, it was helping sellers. And WebStreet was started by Empire Flippers. It was formerly called Empire Flipper Capital, and they rebranded to WebStreet. I started there after their first fund. They've raised, I believe, 10 funds now. So I started in fund two, helping their team and the operators that they bring on with all things acquisition. So similar to probably what you do with your clients, kind of helping them through organizing their deal flow, figuring out which ones they want to prioritize and move to the next level and disqualify, and kind of help them think through buyer seller conference calls, making an offer, kind of all things that go in the acquisition phase. So kind of I would step in after they've raised the money, and then I would work with the operators and the WebStreet team to help them acquire businesses more efficiently. So it was different, but similar in the same way, kind of applying what I learned at Empire Flippers and what I've learned buying my own deals and advising some buyers as well.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's cool to get to be a part of both sides. You've learned from both sides, and sounds like in that realm, there was maybe a bit more finance on the buy side. So you got to learn a little bit more about that. What sort of deal sizes, were you helping acquire with WebStreet?
Yeah, it's evolved over time. So they raise funds around different operators or portfolio managers and their skill set. So it was FBA businesses, content sites, KDP businesses, and now more agency and SaaS businesses are trying to buy agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to find good agency deals and SaaS deals as well. I mean, there's a lot of them, but to find a really good one is not as easy as it would seem. But yeah, they range, I would say, from low six figures, and I think the biggest deal that I've done through WebStreet was just below 3.5 million.
Okay, cool.
Total deal
Cool.
size.
Yeah, congrats. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so much
Thank
learning,
you.
so much knowledge on the sell side and the buy side. And now DealSlide, founder of DealSlide. What's DealSlide? Tell me about DealSlide or us and what your goals are for it.
Yeah. So honestly, man, it was kind of inspired from being in the space for a while and being a little bit frustrated on their not having to go to all the different broker and marketplaces separately. And I felt like there should be a better way to see the deals in one place. So it was kind of built out of a frustration where it felt like there had to be a better way to. And there were some other people that have done it, but they're not as updated or as robust as what that deal slide. But essentially, it consolidates all the online businesses that are for sale into one place. So it will save a ton of time as opposed to if you're serious and want to look for a deal or just figure out what's going on in the market. You would need to go to Flippa, to Empire Flippers. We're pulling from 20 sources right now, and we have more than 4,000 deals, and we update every single day. So if there's new deals, we put them on there. If there's deals that are taken off from the broker or websites or marketplaces, we remove them. So it saves a ton of time when you're looking for deals, and you can search by keyword and price and monetization, niche, etc., to filter down and find businesses that meet your criteria in seconds, as opposed to what that would take previously, having to go to all the websites and check email lists to keep track of the market. And then working with WebStreet, they're trying to find deals, and it always felt like we were missing a deal, and also keeping track of the deals from spreadsheets. And a lot of buyers do that, I found, that I'm working with, and it just felt like there should be some consolidated platform to make it easier. And that's how it was inspired. And so I think it's TBD exactly where it's going to go. But right now it's a place where you could see all the listings in one platform from all the different broker and marketplaces. And you can save your criteria or track specific listings, and we'll notify you if a new deal goes live that hits the criteria, or if there's a price change or something in a listing that you want to track. We will send you a free weekly update right now. And the plan in the near future is to charge for a tier of kind of more safe searches and more tracked deals and daily updates and some things that we can offer on historical pricing and things like that. But I'm very excited about it, and I think it'll be interesting where we go in the near future.
Well, everybody check out dealslide.com. I'll put links to that in the show notes. But where else can people find you if they want to reach out, Ross? And thanks so much for your time as well, coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you reaching out. I think LinkedIn would probably be the best spot, or dealslide.com. You can create a free account and you can book a call with me through there as well. So I would say dealslide.com, book a call if you'd like to chat, or LinkedIn at Ross Gerson would be the best two places.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross, for your time. Really appreciate it. Guys, links will be to all of those in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.